Thank you, Susan, for joining us today. I know you've done a lot of work on transition. Uh, First, let me ask you, why did you call the institute Sudden Money Institute?
Well, because when money changes, life changes, and when life changes, money changes. And when money changes suddenly, either up or down, it's a big change and it's life altering for many people. So that was why sudden. And money rather than wealth was because when you have money change, it takes a while for that money to get integrated and become wealth. I think of wealth as much bigger than just numbers. Where money is usually counted in numbers, wealth is counted in overall well being. So it takes a while for money change to come into. I think the tagline on the book originally was turn sudden money into lasting wealth.
Right, and then I think the name of the firm, the business, also transitioned from Sudden Money Institute to Financial Transitionist Institute.
Yeah. When we started Sudden Money, we weren't thinking of ourselves as Sudden Money advisors. We were a large group of colleagues interested in the topic from a financial planning point of view. But then, as we moved 4, 5, 6 years in, we were spending so much time in it. We were becoming different kinds of financial planners, and we needed a name, not a sudden money advisor, because it sounds like you're chasing assets. And that's not what it turns out. The word transitionist came across to us about seven. A transitionist is someone who is specifically skilled and trained to manage change. A financial transitionist. We're not trained to manage all change. We're not therapists, we're not physicians. We're financial. So we're a financial transitionist is someone who is skilled and trained to manage financial change. And then when that's who we became, financial transitionist, the decision was should we say certified or not? And to say certified means that there's another level of responsibility, and we feel the public deserves to know that it isn't just a weekend course. These are people that are deeply committed to ongoing training, so the certification was appropriate. So
Right.
certified financial transitionist.
Fantastic. And I know now that you are working with people in India, and what do you see as sort of similarities or differences? What do you see as the potential?
Well, there's an old saying I love. It says, exactly the same but different. And that's what I see in India. We have the same or very, very similar financial planning training in the CFP. So we have a technical change model that is replicated pretty closely around the world. But then every culture has another overlay on it. And in India, we're learning about the culture. So there are some things that are universal, that are the same for all of us human beings, with the psychophysiological changes. Sociological is more cultural. So we have to be aware of an individual. We have to know the universal neurophysiological, but we have to really learn cultural. And quite honestly, I've only been working in India now for maybe 3 years,
Right.
and I'm still learning. Each time we come up with a different case, I have to step back and say, oh, what is the same and what is different?
Yeah, so in fact, I'll tell you my experience when I got into the program. I thought that there would be a lot of Americanization of, what you were sort of trying to share and you were trying to learn. But every time there was some sort of tool that we had to use, and I applied it to some of the clients, it sort of fit like a glove, and I could sort of easily see that human beings are the same across the world.
Yes.
So I think that, frankly, when a country also is going through transition, so you've got new wealth, you're suddenly getting the breakdown of the family, joint family system, the nuclear family. You're beginning to start seeing divorces, which was not happening because there was a pressure during living in a joint family. And people are making money by selling businesses. Bunch of things that are happening, and I can see certainly that there is huge relevance there. So one question which probably comes to mind in the current sort of volatile situation is, when the market sort of move very sharply, some of the behaviors that are manifest when people are going through transition of being overwhelmed, having fractured focus, just being nervous or being excited if the market's going up, could also sort of replicate itself in the market, right? And it seems to happen to all people. So is this also a transition? How would you deal with something like this?
Well, a sharp change in the market is something that all investors pay attention to, or the vast majority. And if someone is in transition, they're in that time of uncertainty. Maybe they've sold a business and now they just don't have a business and they have that in between. Or maybe they've inherited money or there's a death or a divorce.
Or they're just going into retirement, or just not into
Yeah, oh,
retirement.
that
But yeah,
particularly going
yeah,
into retirement. That will exaggerate or could exaggerate their response to the markets.
right.
So when you look at all your clients in light of a major change or an abrupt change in the markets, pay closer attention to those who are in transition because they're also in a position to be making important decisions about their life. And you don't want them to do that when they're in an exaggerated or overreactive state of mind. But also, with thinking transitions and market disruption, you want to be careful with people as you work with them going into transition that they don't have more risk for this, knowing that they could have some additional disruption in their life. So yeah, the market changes can be important, and quite frankly, if the market changes and doesn't come back quickly, it could be a sudden loss or an unexpected loss, which then can also catapult someone into transitions if that money was really critical to them.
Yeah. Wow. So do you have any questions for me? Since I've been doing this for the last maybe 4 5 years, and I've had very fascinating experiences. And what I start to see is that because I'm looking for transition, I'm seeming to find transition everywhere. So, you speak about the big transitions of divorce, death, lottery winning, sale of a business, retirement. But I can also see when somebody decides to move residence, they are
Yes.
going through transition. When one of the children goes abroad for studies, there is a transition. When both go, there is a bigger transition. So you almost seem to find transition wherever you look at. Is there any sort of study about how many transitions people go through in life?
Yeah, there actually are some studies on that, and Dr. Schlossberg's book called Overwhelmed maps that out very well. And she identifies more. We look at 12 transitions that as financial planners they come up frequently. But in life, outside of just the financial, yes, all those things that you mentioned, and they tend to overlap, but they happen at different ages and stages. And the difference is that you look at how that event has altered your life, has altered your routines, your responsibilities, your relationships, and your assumptions on how life is working. So one person might take the leaving of the kids to go abroad as a great event. They look forward to it. It's not a big deal. And others may take that as a life-altering event. And just because you had a strong reaction to one transition doesn't mean that that's how you're going to be with all of them. It's very individual. And that's part of the skill. And that's part of the skill that you have, is you can see who really needs that extra work and who doesn't. We have to be aware. We can't treat all clients the same, say, all widows do this, all inheritors do that. And we have to know our clients very well and listen. And our tools, well, you can speak to the tools, like our tool on communication. How many different ways have you used that?
Yeah, so I think that that's such a fascinating tool that, frankly, it looks like that's a logical first thing to do with a client, and not giving them a checklist to fill up in terms of these are your goals, these are your assets, is your income. So we are trying to see whether we can sort of institutionalize this across the organization. As you are aware, a few other people from our team are also going through this program. Because I think that trying to understand how people will behave, how they like to be communicated, what they would do when they not don't feel good, is important to find out when things are going fine, not when things are not going fine. Because typically we do get, the same client is sort of pushing us when markets are moving up, saying, "Why are we sitting in cash? Why aren't we in equity?" And the moment there is a fall of 2%, 3%, 5% in a week, and they start reading headline news that this is doomsday coming, they say, "Why the hell? What are we doing? Why aren't we getting out of the market?" Right? So, I think that some of these tools are excellent to work with. I think one of the points you mentioned earlier about the empty nester. And you said somebody might think of that as great freedom. We can do what we want now. We are not stuck with, being driven by what the kids wanted. And others would say, oh, my life is all empty. And sometimes it might happen with a set of parents. One is feeling good,
Yes.
and one is
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
those are challenges, I think.
Yeah, they are challenges. But then, from a financial planner's point of view, to know how each one of your clients makes their best decisions, to know how each one of your clients likes to receive information. Some people want to read everything and they want time to digest. Other people just want you to tell them what to do. And then there's everyone in between. How do people like to be in a meeting? Do they like a long agenda? Do they like long meetings where they get everything done? Or do they like just tap one issue at a time kind of meetings? And when you know that, you can help your client be their best. They're at their best, so you can be at your best, and you have more productive meetings, implementations easier. People have confidence in the decisions they make with you. They don't just say, "Oh, you decide," and then later they say, "How come you did that to me?" You want them to co-create with you. But also those one-page overviews that we do. You've had good results with that.
Yeah, in fact, I was thinking that, sometimes just to calm the client, if we are able to break down their assets that they are holding with each of them being held for a different purpose, then I think is the time and attention that that client places on one particular stock going down 10%, but that stock is 2% of the portfolio, is actually minimized. But before we got down to doing a one pager and trying to put down buckets, there was always chaos in the meeting because all the attention was on this, quarter percent
Yes,
loss
yeah.
in the portfolio, and the big things are being missed out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a challenge. The way you describe it, and maybe even how I think about it, almost feels like every financial planner should, actually get themselves certified as a transitionist.
Well, other people have said that, and I know it's a business, so it's self-serving. But as people find out what we really do, frequently they say, "How come I wasn't trained in this from the very beginning? I have my CFP and it's great, and I don't think you can do good work without having that kind of training. But you really can't do the complete work without this because it's so fundamental." Do you remember the client that you worked with that had so many decisions? And you went into a meeting thinking, "Oh, this is going to take a couple of hours to explain all the process," and you used a one pager?
Right.
Tell
Right.
about that.
Yeah, so this was a client who had taken an insurance policy, and 8 years later was saying that I think I should just get out of that policy because I'm not sure whether it's meeting my purpose. And around that time, I was sort of studying the one pager, so I actually put down sort of a grid and said that you had three choices. You either withdraw everything from the policy, close it. You decide you'll continue with the policy, and the third option is you continue but you pay reduced premium. And in each of these situations, I said, what is the impact on life insurance? What's the impact on your future goal? Where else can you invest? What happens to liquidity, taxation? So some 5 by 3 sort of grid. And I knew in my mind that the opportune sort of decision that that client had to make was one of those boxes. So I sort of very subtly put that in a different color, or put it in bold, I remember. And I sent that to the client, and then we said, after I send it, we'll have a meeting. And I thought we are going to spend some time discussing, what are the options, why I'm thinking the pros and cons of each. And he came to the meeting with the husband and says, okay, so that's decided. So now let's proceed with the financial plan. And that was quite amazing.
So
Yeah.
they were comfortable with what you highlighted?
Yeah.
And
they
they needed
figured,
to see everything.
yes, I think they figured that, yes, you've thought through the various options. And once they were all put down on the table, even they could see it. Because sometimes you're looking at one option and saying, oh, markets are going down, let me exit. But you're not thinking about, oh, so what's happened in the past when such things happen?
Yeah.
Is there a valuation? Is this money actually needed for something that's coming up in the next 2 months, or is it 2 decades later? So do I need to take actions on
Yeah,
this
it's
today?
confusing.
Yeah.
It's confusing. And what we're talking about, of course, is one of the 9 tools that advisors learn in the certification process.
Right.
And they learn that in, I think it's the 3rd module. And once clients see these one-pagers, they call it the paper, because it's the one thing that makes sense to them.
Right.
And it's a very specific way to do them, but you can do them for all kinds of client situations.
So I have a contract thought to, everyone should do this program. I also think that possibly you need certain skill sets of, I don't know how to put it correctly. Maybe you can sort of suggest the right words, but you have to have a sense of care towards the client. You should be patient. You should be wanting to understand. And one of the key things that you teach us in the program is that you should be willing to listen. And sometimes, as financial planners, we have the solution. Here is my magic wand. Here is my toolkit. Let's go.
Yes.
Yes. So,
yes.
do you think that this may not apply to certain people because they don't have the mindset for it?
I think anyone can learn to do this, and we have had people that told us right in the beginning, I know I'm not a good listener. My wife tells me that all the time, or I
That's
really
true of all husbands, right?
no. Or they'll say, I love numbers and spreadsheets, but my
Right.
clients don't like that, so they want to learn, and they can, but they're more mechanical. They can follow the textbook and the tools,
Right.
and they get results. Most of our advisors are kind of hardwired to be relationship based, not numbers based, and they want to be better at that. And everyone can be a better listener. Isn't it funny that listening is such an important human skill, but no one really taught you how to be good at deep listening. We're taught how to be good active listeners. I listen to you, find out what I think you want that I have to tell you about or to sell you or to guide you in. I hear that and I think, aha. Then I wait for you to be done so I can go in with my expertise.
No, but Indians do one step better. They don't wait for you to be done and then they jump in and say, I know what you're going to say, here's my response to it. And I've personally experienced this. So I think being in the program has allowed me to just be a little calmer and let people finish what they have to say. In fact, it helps because then they have let out all their arsenal, so then you can go and defend or suggest alternatives. But I have seen this sometimes. I slip into my Indian behavior, and at one of your meetings, I recall having a conversation with someone, and they were speaking, and I butted in. And the great listeners that they stopped. So I said, I know this is what you were going to say. I think it's like this. They nodded their head. And after I finished, they said, no, but that's not what I was going to say. And that
Exactly.
sort of, wakes you up and say, no, there is an advantage to listen.
And that happens with clients. When you ask a client, what's important to you? What do you want? How do you feel about this? They come out with an answer that is their first level answer.
Right.
And if that's an answer that you like, you say, oh, well, because of that, or an answer that you can refute, oh, this is how. But if you keep saying, well, I wonder what else would be important to you, or how would that work, or tell me a little bit more about that before we go forward, and you give people a chance, they'll go down layers. And when I mean layers, it's what's more important to them. So you want the advice to really fit. They say advice that sticks. Dr. Moira Summers' book is a great book, Advice That Sticks. Because if a client really understands what you have decided to do, then they're going to stay with it. And it's not going to be your fault that they've changed their mind. They know they can come back and talk to you about it. It's a completely different relationship than do this, do this, do this.
So I must try one of the things that you've shared in one of the workshops, saying that when you end the meeting, keep the last 10 minutes before you finished everything, and then say, okay, is there anything else that was important to you that you have not spoken about today?
Yes.
And that's when the can of worms actually comes out. And I've not yet tried that. But I'm thinking that that would be enormously useful, especially for people going through transition.
Yes, because they're not sure. And that's uncertainty is a common experience in transition. That doesn't mean bad or good, but just uncertain. I was always knowing what I wanted and how to do it. Now I'm unsure. The other great question that Dr. Moira Summers has taught us, one of our faculty members, was to say, is there anything we've been talking about today that's leaving you unsettled?
Great. Yeah, Maya is superb. I recall in my first workshop that I attended in Florida, and you were discussing some case, and I responded, this is what I would do. And she asked the question saying, so what was your bias that came into answering that question? And then I answered that and said, okay, now put that aside and now answer. And suddenly the answer was different. And sometimes somebody has to show you the mirror. It's always there, but
We
you're
all
trying to push your sort of thought through.
Yeah, and I sit here like the supposed expert, but we're talking about human behavior. And you can have all the expertise you want, but there's always more to learn. And there's always a new way to see something. And if you pay attention, your clients and the other human beings you work with will make you a better human being and therefore a better financial planner. But there has to be an intention and willingness. And one of the things that I know you and I talk about is that it's not just getting training, like here, read this textbook. It's experiential learning. And there isn't much of that in our industry. In most cases, you're taught a little bit here and there, and maybe you write cases, or maybe you take a 2-day or something like that, but we're in it on a continual basis. And not everybody's willing to do that much. And if you are, you get tremendous pay beyond what you can really anticipate. But I understand most people want a magic bullet, and I notice in India that most advisors like it when things are happening quickly.
Right.
So they're very expedient. And this is the time to slow down and build a new skill set. You can still be expedient in parts, but this is the slower human side.
Yeah, wonderful, Susan, talking to you. Is there anything else that you miss talking about that you would like to share?
I can't think of it right now, but I'm sure in the future there'll be plenty.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.